Welcome back to the Femme Portfolio podcast, where we talk all things work, wealth, and wellness. I'm your host, Rachel Hirsch, and today we have the incredible honor of having Melissa Gelman Weiss back on for a part two. Melissa, will you tell everyone a little bit about you, especially for those who haven't listened to the first episode, which you should?
It would be my pleasure to tell you something about me, and I'm so glad to be back. I guess I'll start with work because that's the topic at hand. I'm a career CMO, had a brand. I've been very lucky to work with incredible people at unbelievable companies. I was at Amazon launching Amazon Fashion. I was at J. Crew. I was at Barry's. Just like really, um, you know, in the right place at the right time kind of career. Um, and then in my spare time, I am a wife, a mom to two girls and a dog. My two children are proof that like you can't take credit for anything and you can't self-flagellate over anything because
I'm
they're like
obsessed with you.
a tale of two cities. Um, yeah, I think that's like a good start. That's me. Uh,
Okay. Can
yeah.
we dig into you've had really big jobs and also you air quoted career CMO. You're legit a career CMO, so we're just gonna leave out the air quotes. But will you tell us what is it like working full time in like a real high powered job and a very demanding job and also raising two strong, independent, incredible women?
Um,
We're starting
well,
off big.
I come at the world from a really unique perspective, which is that my husband signed up for equal parenting from the beginning. When we met, I had a wild job and I was working all the time, and I loved it. I like that. And he knew what, as my mom likes to joke, he knew what he was getting and he signed up for it anyway. Um, and so we have always parented as equals. It wasn't like, and candidly, I am lucky enough to not really relate to this idea of an absentee dad. Um, I, and so I would say the thing about my jobs that's interesting is it wasn't just that they were intense, it's that they were frequently remote before remote was a
Mm,
so if you look, I live in New York, and if you look at my resume, it literally looks like I lived on the West Coast. You know, I worked
we
for
wish.
Amazon, which is in Seattle. I worked for Barry's, which is in LA. I worked for Lyft, which is in San Francisco. Like clearly, I guess no one east of the Mississippi wants to hire me or something because that's what I do. And all joking aside, I think that's where a lot of the innovation has been. Um, and so Aaron was always there to fill in the gaps for me from a time perspective. And when I was working at Barry's, I lived in Los Angeles for 2 weeks a month. And so it's an interesting question, actually. I don't know why I'm thinking about this now, but how did I do it? I mean, I was doing the best I can, trying to, I hate the word juggle or balance because it's all a lie. It's like, what am I going to be the best at today because I'm not going to be great at anything. Like where am I the least
Yeah.
bad, right? I'm going to either try and show up as their mom or a wife or at work or I mean, forget being a friend, right? Just it was and I think the reason I'm pausing is an unpopular opinion. We parented equally, if anything, he stepped in more. And the Barry's job, the not being here for 2 weeks a month, it it was a proof point for me, and I've said this before, that there's only so far you can lean in before you fall on your face. And that is for me. That is hyper personal, but that job put a tremendous strain on my relationship with my husband. It um, it kept me so far from my kids that I just like I didn't know what was going on in their lives. I couldn't
Right.
have told you what they were doing for after school activities. And so, yeah, he was there to plug in for the kids, but like I I decided after that job I never want to do that again. I want to know what is going on in their lives, regardless of what he's able to do or I'm able to juggle.
I think that as someone who doesn't want kids, what can't actually empathize, can only sympathize. For me, I already feel that I'm not great. I'm not excelling. I'm not thriving at anything. It's what today am I going to prioritize and what am I going to compromise on? And that leaves me feeling all types of ways, friends, relationships, businesses. But I can only imagine that takes it to like the nth degree when it's your children.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I have my latest thing is I have a real issue with the language mom guilt
mm,
because and I used to use it, but that was not my story. I had no guilt, actually. What I had was a massive shift in priorities. And so it's not guilt today that drives my decision making. It is prioritization. It is knowing what is important to me and how to allocate my time properly so that I can have a career and also be present for my kids. And being present is not the same as being in the same room. Like they're very
so
different. Yeah, yeah. And so I think it's not about I'm not guilty. I just don't want to not be here.
how has that changed both for you and for them as they've gotten older?
Well, I think sorry if anyone is watching this has like little kids. It only gets more demanding. It's just different, right? Like it's not physically exhausting, but
Mm,
my daughter, my older daughter is applying to colleges now. And it's a full-time job for
yeah.
like all of us, and we're planning college visits and we're supporting her through the SAT process. And she's an excellent student, but she needs help. She comes downstairs and she's like, Mom, will you help me with my stats homework? And I'm like, well, I'm not really very good at this. She's like, don't worry, Mommy, the answers are on the back of the index card, um, but she, uh, she needs me in a way that is I must be here. I must. And so yeah, and I would just say I don't really talk about that much, but there have been some like things that happened with my one of my daughters during COVID, and it was especially hard to show up when we found out that my younger one had a learning disability, and that was happening right in the middle of a new job, and something would fall apart at work, and I would get a phone call, and I have to hop off a meeting, and I ran a team
Right.
of like 70 people, and I actually think that that's something I talk to a lot of women now whose kids either had issues during COVID or have been diagnosed with ADHD or have been diagnosed with autism or something. And it's hard to have a big job and especially lead teams when like at a moment's notice you could get a phone call and you have to go.
So I guess what do you do? Is it there's not a lot you can do and having a community of other moms is really helpful or like how do you navigate that?
I don't know, by the way, I feel like there's a business in here somewhere, not to be totally mercenary, but
Love it.
well, what I did is my husband and I did this together, and I prioritized my kid over that job, and I we leaned into the school, and um, honestly, the answer is I did the best I could because there isn't really anything you can do. You just can't be in two places at once. And because of a certain moment in my life, like I actually during at that time chose not work. I just chose not work. I had to because
Chose
health
the
is,
wellness.
yeah, I chose my kids' health, honestly. So, yeah. God, I never talk about this. I'm talking about it on a podcast.
I mean, I A, love it, but B, imagine it's highly relatable and probably
I just,
incredibly helpful.
yeah. I don't really know how I mean, there are all these women I know, and they're like, my daughter's going through this, or going through this, or applying to special schools, or we're doing this, or we're doing that. And by the way, the special schools are like $100,000 a year.
Jesus Christ.
I know. Um, and we all talk about it, but then it's like, no one wants to You don't want to say that to a recruiter. You don't want to say that to your job, to your boss, because you're like, I'm not gonna get hired. It's a really weird thing how you're not allowed to be a human when you like apply for a job.
I was going to say, so what gives in that scenario? Is it that that is one of the friction points of why there are less women in leadership, or why, like, maybe, yeah, is that just like a friction point that we can't overcome, or what's the solution there?
I actually think it's an input to why the workplace and careers are shifting. And
Mm.
I have no idea what I'm talking about, but my observation is you see more fractional leadership. You see many more people leaning into fractional. You see a lot more people interested in consulting. Um, this shift in workplace culture, which I think was championed by Gen Z, has become increasingly relevant to Gen X. And remote work, I prefer to work in person, but remote work is a game changer for a parent. It's a game changer because it means I can run to school like with the phone, which I've done on my dashboard on a call, get off the call for like however long and hop back on the call and be back at my house. So there is a flexibility in the new way we work and the cultural shifts in how we think about work that supports people who have to support their kids. And I don't mean financially in this case.
I guess so. We're seeing so many big tech, big finance, pick whomever, 5 days a week back in the office. Do you think that that loses some of the high potential female workforce because they can't commit to that after 4 years of working remote or partially remote, where they were able to show up for their family in a new way?
You know, I'm interested to see what the trends are because admittedly, I don't know what the data is, but I can tell you that I speak to women a lot about um, jobs which they perceive to have more flexibility. Someone put her in touch with me the other day, and she's interested in going in and being an operating partner at a private equity firm
Hmm.
because she was like, well, it's not full time, but I get to work for a company full time, and there's more. What did she say? There's like a better quality of life, and I'm like, so you're on the plane all the time, but yeah, but I have those conversations a lot. And by the way, I like being in an office. I do. I do well with humans, but I
You beautifully extroverted human.
I'm so extroverted. I can't function by
Beautiful.
myself. I just like stand and stare at the door until someone walks in.
Last night, someone said to me, she was like, "You're a total stranger." She was like, "You're really okay with silence," and I was like, "That's not something good. That the first time you're meeting someone, they're saying that to you." We're
Right.
refocused. This was already like an insert ADHD moment. We're gonna get there though.
I know. Well, my daughter didn't get it from nowhere. It's actually interesting because it was going through the process with her that I was listening to all this stuff that was going on with her, and I'm like, wait a second. Every single thing they described of this is, leading us to a diagnosis of ADHD. I'm like, I have this, and I called my psychiatrist because everyone has a psychiatrist on speed dial, and I was like, do you think I have ADHD? And she was like, do you not? Like it was so
I'm dead.
she was like, you are a classic case. And I'm like, why did no one, I was actually pretty mad. I'm like, why has no one brought this up? But it's interesting because I went to her back to school night. Actually does parallel work a lot. I went to her back to school night after the ADHD diagnosis and all this stuff, and she goes to a public school, great public school, and they teach off a core curriculum, and we do the way back to school night is structured. In case no one here knows the hell that is back to school night, is it's basically like 10 minutes of every class, like back to back to back to back,
Okay.
right? And everything is like the teacher gets up there and they tell you this is what it is and they talk about the class and then they do a presentation and then you go to the next class. And I started crying about a third in because I'm like, I still can't even talk. This much must break her. Like the way they teach is they just talk, right? For 50 minutes. Her brain doesn't work like that. Her brain doesn't work like that. That doesn't work. Like there is an implication of a kind of executive functioning of someone who can like sit and listen and take notes and learn. And I'm not that person. Because by the way, corporate America is not so different. It's just we haven't changed these structures and how we work for like 150 years, you know?
But it's like, what gives? At what point, what's the impetus for that change? At what point will change happen?
I personally think there are so many. By the way, I'm not the only parent who realized this. I hear a lot of like late in life ADHD diagnoses now.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, this is a generation where I think like I I'd love to know the data point of what percentage of them have an ADHD or something akin diagnosis, but they're going to change it.
No.
They're going to change it. They don't communicate the way we do. They don't think the way we do. Like they can't abide the rules and it doesn't they're going to change it. By the way, like when I think about why I wanted to start my own business, it was I love the idea of it, and I'm like I want to have an opportunity to run a business differently. Like I don't want to do that.
Can we transition into WGV then because of that? Because there's so much I still want to unpack here, but that is one of the things that you and I talked about just the other day is we're not or we are neurodivergent, and the way we run our business is different because of that. And when I received feedback saying sort of like recorrecting that we need to be what's it called? Normal.
Neuronormal.
Neuronormal. I'm rephrasing it. You were like, no, 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 that's not us. And thank goodness for you because I felt yet again inferior, lesser, like we weren't doing it right because we are neurodivergent. We're running it our own way. I really took us off tangent. I'm sorry. But it was a
No,
big moment for me when you said that to me.
well, I mean, I here's the thing, right? Just to like get into it. The idea was so we started WGB like 6 months ago at this point. I don't even know.
Yeah.
It was like a minute and a year ago at the same time. And uh and we had a thesis and a mission, right? Which was to empower founders, female executives to, be successful leaders and run successful companies, right? All toward this idea of like an equitable path to success. That's
Yeah.
the big idea.
Yeah.
And um, we were like, okay, well, let's figure out how we can do this, And I feel like, especially as a founder, when you're starting, the idea of like, we need a roadmap and we need a process and we need this and we need that. Like, I've actually been in a situation where like I tried to run something early stage as if it was a big company and it was a mistake because companies need process. They need project management because there are multiple people involved and multiple stakeholders and all the things. And you have to like, offline and circle back and do the corporate things. And like when you're two people who are building a community and learning and iterating and moving fast, like there, all of those structures are just inhibiting,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Like, so yeah, I had it was very triggering for me actually, because I'm like really tired of this idea of like, you need to have, bring in more structure. It's like, actually, we don't. Like, first of all, just to get me started, we did have a business idea. We did have a plan and we did have a P&L. So it wasn't like, I mean, it's doing us a bit of a disservice, right? Like we understood what was the most profitable um, element of the business to focus on. And we were
Yeah.
focused on that, right? And I don't need to write a memo on that because you're the only person I work with. Like if you need me to write you a
For
memo
real.
on that, like
I'm not reading the memo, so.
right. Like what why we had a there's two people. There's no process. There's a conversation.
And one of our skills working together is 100% our communication. We talk all day, every day, and work with each other, are honest with each other, iterate with each other. Communication is probably one of our skills that we don't need to, or that allows us to be maybe looser around the edges.
Yeah. Yeah. I also think you are really one of the most productive people I have ever met. It's like unbelievable to me how you pack in 40 hours into a 24-hour day. Like I am in awe of you. And I think that working agile is your strong suit. I prefer that, right? So we could have a meeting about it, or we could throw up a Google sheet and we could like have the conversation in Google Sheets and through Slack. Like the all of the things about corporate structures, they're a little bit being decamped by technology, you know? Like I don't need 50 project managers and roadmaps when I like have all of it, whether it's ChatGPT or Docs or Slack or whatever, that's just like cutting the middle out.
You are, this is, I mean, there are a million reasons why I love you and why I value our relationship, but this, I aspire to be where you are and how you view it. I am still 100% working through the fact that I was diagnosed with ADHD really late in life, and it was hyper validating for me because I was different growing up. And I think it was challenging for my parents. It was probably challenging for my sister. I was really good at school, but I wasn't neuronormal. I know there's a term for this, but I was different, and I felt the burden of being challenging, and I labeled myself forever as challenging. So when I was diagnosed with ADHD and I understood my challenging pieces weren't challenging, I was just different, and that was okay. And people just didn't know how that I was different or how to handle those differences. And I'm definitely still working through, especially in the workplace, because there were 10 years where I was in the workplace before knowing that I was neurodivergent. And I I struggled, not in ways that I think maybe were obvious. I had a successful corporate career, but I struggled. And I think people noticed that I was different in weird ways. Like I remember I couldn't have, there weren't standing desks, but I work way better when I'm in a model standing. So I built my own standing desk with just like things around the office, and I would stand. And I would rock side to side, and like there were just little pieces, and people thought I was peculiar, and I'm sure it was peculiar to them, but I was incredibly efficient when I was doing the things that I needed to help me, and I didn't mind being labeled as peculiar. All that to say, I'm still working through the challenging and being different and it not working for within the old form and not fitting within a box. And so I imagine that that is working with me. You're probably like, get over it. Like, you know that that's not how you work, but you helped me get there. So thank you.
I mean, I have the unfair advantage of coming up through creative industries where like no one doesn't think like this, you know? It's like all because again, like I'm very hot on this because there have been a lot of conversations about my daughter lately, so I've been thinking about it. Like the other word people used to use for whatever is just creative person, you know? Like that's what that is I was listening to we got feedback on my daughter and they were like, she's not great at like frameworking her work and scaffolding. And I'm like, oh my God, just like actually use a real word. Just say she's disorganized. Like, let's just say she's disorganized. And they were like, but what she's excellent at is she can take all these different ideas that seem to not connect and put them into one coherent thought. I'm like, is that surprising to you? Like, that's the whole point. Like that's how her brain works. Like
Hmm.
this, right? Oh, here's an elephant and a piece of paper and the letter C. And what that means is that, we can build a business of paper elephants for children. I don't know. Like it's just one and one equals 20 for her. And so I feel like when by the way, it's all the point of the ADHD diagnosis being so freeing, all of it, like hyper focus, ADHD, right? I'm like, I am in a deep rabbit hole. Deep rabbit hole. I get more done in an hour than some people do in a lifetime. And um I think the other piece is like the last minute thing. That is very hard, by the way, in a corporate environment. That really needs to be managed because you can't manage a team and do shit last minute. Which is, by the way, my hot take that ChatGPT. If anyone is listening and is ADHD or any sort of neurodivergence, Tell ChatGPT what you're struggling with and tell it you need its help, and it will create a framework for you because it did this for me. It's like life changing.
Will you give us an example? Like double tap into that. I need tangible.
Yeah, sure. So I said to ChatGPT, I'm like, I have an ADHD diagnosis and it really gets in the way of my career. Can you help me? And then it said, sure. And the first thing it did was like, well, first you're going to do this, and then you're going to check back and do this, and da da da. And I'm like, and I wrote back to ChatGPT, that was so long I couldn't even pay attention through what you wrote. So I need a different idea. And it asked me, like, what are the things that work for you? And I'm like, well, nothing. But, and they were like, well, why don't we do this? And I use an app that is a transcription of all my Fireflies app, if they like want to sponsor us. And I transcribe all my meetings. And essentially, what it did was it created a document that was a to-do list and it prioritized it. And this sounds really basic into like, urgent, important, do this in a week, do this in this week. And then what it said was just upload all your stuff and I'll write your to-do list. Upload your notes, upload your Fireflies, upload. So it's essentially, it's almost like those expenses services where like you send them all your receipts and it puts it all together like that, but for my brain.
That's amazing.
It's amazing. It's amazing. So when I remember to do it, it kills. But like,
My jaw, I'm like, gotta pick it up.
but one of the things I think is interesting is as I went down this hole with ChatGPT was there's two elements of this, right? Some is ADHD and some is executive functioning. And I think that has been really important for me over the years to figure out like how I learn and how I take in information, which by the way, for me is in having conversations. I think by this.
Yep. I actually wonder if anyone's listening and is open to sharing feedback, whether it's in the comments or sending in an email, because early on in the episodes, some of the feedback that I gave myself was you interrupt and you take it onto a tangent. And like we have a list of a potential outline where to go. Like even today, we had a potential outline. We haven't hit half of it. But it's so natural for me. I'm like, I'm curious about this and I want to dig into this. As a listener who may or may not be neurodivergent, is that frustrating? Is that confusing? Does that irritate you or you didn't even notice? That's a real question if anyone's willing to share that feedback.
Don't you have experience in your life where like people are either into it or not?
Yeah.
Right? Like I
That
find,
was yoga teaching.
what'd
You
you
either like
say?
me or you don't. When I teach yoga, you either like me or you don't. And it's not personal. Well, I guess it sort of is, but it's not, you don't like, it's not whether you like me or not. It's whether you like my style.
Right. It's either like you understand what the hell I'm saying or you don't, Like that. You're either like 100% that makes sense, or you're just sort of like, check please, sorry, I'm done with you. But I like people who can go down the non-linear rabbit hole with me. I enjoy that because the word you used was so important was curious. And
I am insanely, it's the feedback that I get so often. I could meet someone for the first time. I mean, it's part of why we have this podcast is I just want to understand everything. I want to know everything about you. And so when people sometimes put it down or say that it's different, it was like, it is our superpower. Again, those rabbit holes we're hyper focused and able to produce such good work. And I think it makes us able to relate like this. There's a friendship and a similarity that I have probably never had in my life before. And the value that I find from it, it's part of why I'm so gung ho, that's such a bad phrase, on WGV, which I want to double tap into more because when I think something is born out of the relationship that we have built, I think that's unstoppable. And I'm so excited about WGV. I want to clarify Wellness Growth Ventures, a wonderful fund. I am so proud of. WGV is an offshoot. It's this wellness community of high powered women. Melissa will probably describe it better. I'll let you go.
No, you did. It's a growth platform for women leaders in wellness. And so it's primarily founders and C-suite execs. And then I would say like the services that support them.
Yeah. And it is hard to say exactly where it's going to go, but I think there's so much good, I think, when things are born out of real passion and love and heart rather than just trying to make a pretty penny. Although
Yeah.
we need that to sustain it. I appreciate that.
I think that perfection is the enemy of authenticity.
Oh my gosh.
And when you show up for someone a little messy and like go down rabbit holes, it it frees them to do the same. It frees them to just show up as they are because everything about perfection is stifling and it's all fake. I'm sorry, but it's all fake. And so you're either like bringing it and you're like, wow, this is who we are today. And you're just saying what's in your head, or you're editing. And candidly, like, I don't want to hang out with the editing. I'm not interested. I'm not interested. Like I spent so many years like killing myself with perfectionism in every way, right? Which is I became my exterior. I needed to go to a school with a fancy name. I needed to work at companies with a fancy name. I like starved myself. I over exercised. I did all the things. Like what did that get me? You know, it got me like a lot of anxiety and eating disorder. Like I don't um, and by the way, like when I show up as the person I think I'm supposed to be, I don't like who I am and I don't like the people that I connect with that way
Yes. That again.
at
Yeah.
all. At all. Like really because I like creative and curious people. I like intellectual people. I like the people who like stop and like read the random sign under like an oak tree that's like, "Oh my gosh, look, this tree is where George Washington had a conversation with a bird 300 years ago." They're like, "Oh my God, no way." I
I do
get it.
wonder how that one went and came into your head. Like that's good.
That's the point.
Right. I got it. But like,
You're like,
I
okay,
wish I was
I was making that point.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when your brain is a sieve, there's a lot more room to for stuff to come in because everything's seeping out.
I want to say to anyone that's listening that's interested in joining the WGV community, you're interested in wellness, you want to learn more about it, you want to network in it, you want to hear brilliant people speak, meetwgv.com. You can join, learn more. There's loads of educational programming, downloads. And Melissa and I would love to have you involved.
Yeah. And if you are interested in the like real talk, that is what we do. And we had Julie Cartwright from P-Valve on like a week or two ago, and we asked her to speak about resilience. We asked her to speak about the 8 years before P-Valve was an overnight success because they were in it for eight, I think it was 8 years.
Yeah.
It was hard. And she had two kids and a husband, she's like flying everywhere. Like, I'm like, we take us in the mess because all people see is like, "Oh, they were so successful. Look
Yeah.
at P-Valve. We want to be like P-Valve." Well,
Yeah.
that's 8 years of hard. And by the way, they still have the hard. And I think I don't know if it's third rail, but I'll just say it anyway. I think you see in like other thing, I think you see a lot of, I have seen a lot of women's groups, which I very much appreciate the proliferation of
Mhm.
now. I feel like there is so much support for being a female executive. I have spent my life actually realizing that you can get to the C-suite, but you're not really the boss unless you're on the board, by the way. Because
So real.
yeah, and I have sat at, tables where there were female executives and the whole board was male. So just in case you're wondering if you should get to be a CEO and that's the end of it, no, that's not the end of it. It's like that's why we need more women in venture and private equity in the board, but that's neither here nor there. Um, and I think that for us, for me, when I see these women's groups, it's so empowering to see so many women. And there's a lot of focus on empowerment and just sort of like telling people stories and this is how I did it and inspiration. Uh, for me, I'm like, that's great. And especially when I was founding a four wheel fitness method, I'm like, that's amazing. And I need help, like doing stuff. I need actual tactical help. Like I'm raising on a safe note, but I don't know what a safe note is. I'm Googling what is a safe note while I'm raising on a safe note. right? Like I'm
So
doing
real.
totally. I'm like, I don't know who I should hire for an accountant. What skill set do they need? What do I
Yeah.
like?
What are the
And
questions I ask to know if they're the right accountant?
yes, that's also good. Like, and so for us, I think it's a little bit like there's a lot of inspiration and like the human connection, and it's a lot of like, and by the way, here's the tools and resources that you need to be successful because inspiration, without tools is just, I don't know, not that helpful, partially helpful.
Yeah.
So I think that's really what I'm excited to see is like how we can actually empower women with the education and the resources to be successful.
And it's been amazing to see exactly what you're saying, how excited women are to get these resources and how eager and motivated in the conversation. Like, no one's standing in front of a room talking to people for 50 minutes. It's just a constant iteration, conversation. And that's a fun way for me as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been great. Like, I really do wish I had had this when I launched my business. But
But here we are.
yeah, I get to like I was thinking about this actually this morning knowing we were going to chat and I was thinking about the idea that like it's one thing to say that I learned a lot from an experience, but the big question is like what are you going to do with that learning? What's the action you take? Like how do you pay it forward? Because the thing about the learning piece is like so now what? It's like the difference between an apology and an amends, right? If you apologize to someone, you're like, I'm really sorry. If you make an amends, it means you commit to not do it again. It means you commit to doing things differently. And so I think that for me, having a business that failed, um, was just an opportunity to learn and to do things differently and to share that information with people.
Okay. I'm going back and forth on how we should end because normally we ask a bunch of questions, but you've already answered them. So I guess my question is, do we answer them again?
Sure. I mean, we could ask them again. Um, by the way, you know what the other thing I was thinking about?
Tell me.
In exactly 2 weeks, I'll have 20 years sober.
Oh my goodness.
I
That's incredible.
I know. So I just also sort of want to say that like everything in my life I've had because I've been sober. And
Cool.
I'm so grateful to uh to the program, to the universe, to all the things that have enabled me to show up. Because none of this conversation happens if I were still out in the world gallivanting like I used to. So,
I just got emotional. I feel like we need to get together and celebrate.
yeah,
That's a big milestone. I hope you feel
20.
proud.
Yeah, that is like ridiculous that I'm that old, but yeah. And
That was her takeaway. Okay. I am going to re-ask the questions because remember what your answers were, and I'm A, curious if they're the same, but B, 10 out of 10 recommend her other episode as well. 5 questions. What is something you can't live without?
what is something I can't live without?
Uh-huh.
It's so funny, I can't even remember what I said last time.
I'll tell you, but you don't have to think about it. Just,
Um, what is something I can't live without? My extra large water bottle.
okay, we love that. It was Swedish fish last time.
I thought about saying Swedish fish, but I'm like, I don't know. Like, I'm not as hot on them as I used to be. I actually
Oh,
really can't live without like that giant water bottle. I'm like lost without it.
whoa. What keeps you grounded?
Uh, Beside gravity. Uh, my kids,
That's what you said last time. I love. Who do you admire most?
my mom.
Same. I'm obsessed with her, by the way, fan club. What makes you feel wealthy?
Health. I am
I
feeling
love that one. That
uh,
is so real.
yeah, good health.
Okay. And what's something few people know about you?
That when I graduated college, I wanted to be a professor.
Of what?
I wanted to teach comparative literature.
We have never discussed this. I did not know this about you. This is amazing.
I know. And I called my dad, and I had just gotten through 4 years of college, and I said, I want to go get a PhD. And he said, in what? I'm like, comparative literature. And he was like, no.
Wait,
You
I'm
can
obsessed with him too.
like you can pay for it yourself, but I am not spending all this money on school for you to be poor forever. Like, no.
I love the pragmatism. Last time you said the color of your hair, this one was a real good one.
Yeah, it's true. By the way, I think about it a lot. I love it. I
I
know.
can't wait to meet your parents. Thank
Uh,
you for doing this again. This was filling. For those of you that obviously you wouldn't know, but when we hopped on, I was stressed. I wasn't in the best of spirits, but this is what she does to me every time. She fills me up. I hope I do the same. She makes me feel so good. So I hope you all feel the same way after listening.
Rachel, I think you do that for everyone you meet. I
You're
think
so
that's
wonderful.
your like is that you make people feel good about themselves. And I don't think you try. I think you just do.
I'm ending really awkwardly because I'm about to cry. That was the nicest thing I think anyone's ever said to me, and I feel uncomfortable and don't know how to respond. But thank you, is what I will say. And I'll talk to you in 5 minutes, and we'll see you all next week. Thank you for tuning in.
All right, love you.